Shout out to the newest patrons, Tartarian Truth, RX Only Picture Show, Jonathan Martinez, Rachel, Daniel Morowski, Scott Jordan, Tina Hernandez. Thank you all so very much. Really appreciate it. Make sure to check out the Patreon if you haven't already signed up for it. Patreon.com/the101podcast. Exclusive content on there. Over 100 exclusive episodes. So make sure to check that out. Really appreciate everyone's support. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, review wherever you're listening to if you are on the RSS feed. If you truly enjoy the show, you could just take a few minutes of your time to rate the show. Every little bit counts. It would truly help me out. So thank you all so much and enjoy the show.
Using occult symbolism, it's like, why are these people who seem to be connected putting out this type of information? It's almost as if they want people to know. So it's like a form of chaos magic, honestly. It's like the book is the sigil. We are kind of creating the reality, the paranoid reality they want us to live in. I mean, it actually serves the government for us to walk around believing that everyone's an NPC and everyone's out to get me, because you're more easily controllable when you're in a state of fight or flight.
Welcome back to another episode of the 101 Podcast. I'm your host as always. I just woke up from a nap, so it's all good. We got Nick Hinton with us today. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? Happy to be back.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, right, since we did last. I think we did, what, 102?
202, maybe.
No, I'm not at the 200s
Oh, no.
yet.
Oh, yeah.
102.
No, it was the... Okay, yeah.
Yeah, August 1st. So it's been a little bit. What have you been up to since then, bro? I know you put out a book recently, but you put out a pre-book before the main book. What's going on with that?
So I put out the pre-orders for my new book, The New World Disorder. Originally, I was going to release The Stairway to Sirius before I released anything else, but The Stairway to Sirius has taken me way too long to complete, and I feel like the information in there is like really timely, so I kind of made a shorter, more condensed version. It's not repeating any of the same stuff, but it's still the same concepts in there, and it's a lot of new stuff I learned along the way of when I was writing Stairway to Sirius, and it's just too much extra stuff to include in that book, so I just decided to turn it into a whole other thing and kind of use it as like a prelude or preliminary study into what I'll be talking about later. And Stairway to Sirius is going to be kind of more autobiographical than the one I just put out, which is New World Disorder.
Nice. Yeah, I told you about the journals that I was publishing, and obviously the comic book. You can get a copy of that on my website, Chosen Juan versus This Attorney in Cube. Inspired by Mr. Hinton here with the Saturn time cube simulation when you first started talking about that, bro. That's what really made me dive down the rabbit holes and start taking research more seriously. So here we are, and that's how the 101 podcast was born. It started actually with the Saturn time cube stuff, and right as a kid growing up with the Bigfoot and the Bermuda Triangle. I remember I was real big into the Bermuda Triangle when I was
Me
a
too.
kid in elementary, dude. I remember second, third grade looking at the Bermuda Triangle stuff, Flight 29 or something like that, and trying to figure out what was going on in the middle of, because I'm from Puerto Rico, so the Bermuda Triangle also, plus I'm in Florida, and we get just the tip of the Bermuda Triangle here and over there in Puerto Rico too, which I've also studied I've done an episode on the 12 vial vortices around the world, which are really interesting too. But dude, last time we talked about the singularity, the apocalypse, technomancy, CERN, all that good stuff, and we had a really weird synchronicity, which I was meaning to bring up.
Yeah.
I think I only talked about it on the Patreon.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask if you ever talked about it.
Yeah, I talked about it, I think, one time on the Patreon, but obviously I have you here and we can do it on the main show because that was really freaky. Do you feel that when you write these books, do you get synchronicities like that? Do you get some sort of, not, maybe we can say magical, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do things line up?
Magical. I literally think it is magical. And that's part of the reason I think the other book I'm working on, The Stairway to Sirius, is a freaking never-ending story because they're like, I don't know, me and Maverick, who we're going to talk to eventually at some point, he always messes with me and says that book is the never-ending story. And it does feel like that because as soon as I wrap up one part of an experience that just happened, like there'll be another one that plays into it. And then I feel the need to write about that again to like show people the confirmation I got or whatever, and just how weird things are, and I guess provide evidence of what I'm saying, like that some of these weird things that I talk about really happened to me, because I feel like some of the stories are so unbelievable, but like when you hear all of the, I don't know, the things that happened afterwards or beforehand, you're like, okay, I don't know if an author could really even make this up because it's just so insane. Like I wish I was that creative, some of the things that have happened. But to make a long answer short, yeah, I believe writing is magical. I mean, grammar is Grimoire and, you know, all that stuff. Words are spells, blah, blah, blah. I really do think that writing was the first hermetic art, and there is something mystical about it, just using language in general.
Because you're using sigils when you're writing stuff, so it would make sense. Anything. I recently learned about, I think they're called devil bucks or devil dollars, something like that, in Thailand or Cambodia. Exertus brought it up yesterday. I was on a show with him, and because I said about how because you know the struggle of having to get something printed like a comic book, how expensive it is to, at least a comic book, to produce it. It's thousands of dollars by the time you're done with it. You're not going to get rich off of it anytime soon. And fun fact, a lot of companies that produce comic books like DC, Marvel, all these bigger players, they actually lose money on comic books. They use them more for promotional purposes, but we're talking about multi-billion-dollar corporations who can burn money, and they'll benefit in the long run from something else. So they put out a comic as promotion, but people are going to buy their toys, watch their movies, etc., etc. So they make money elsewhere. And I brought that concept up to Exertus, and he's like, "Oh, that's your devil bucks, bro." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, in these countries, they burn money that has certain figures or sigils on it, and it's like a pact, like the Faustian pact. Like they're asking those entities on that bill, which is kind of messed up, for prosperity in some other way. So by me, quote unquote, spending the money on this book, well, then he's hinting that I'm using it as, again, some sort of sigil magic to create fame or something else of that nature, because I've been synchronistically charged, and it's a lot of the times it's small stuff, but then it gets really oddly specific with what happened with us,
Right.
where
Dude, even today is a very timely day for this. I
really?
saw a freaking space whale this morning.
No, you
not,
didn't.
not in real. On my way to work, man. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, I did see it on my phone. You follow Cyclops? I love his Twitter.
No, I don't. I don't use Twitter that much, bro. I only have it just. I don't even know why I made Twitter.
Fair enough. Well, he posted this thread, and there was I don't remember the details, but there's some movie he was talking about. It's like a new movie, I think, and there's a space whale in it. I'm like, are they really just like, dude? Part of me thinks they're just fucking stealing all the ideas from conspiracy theorists, like,
Dude,
like,
what's his name? Cyclops, you said?
Yeah, PSY, like psyop and Cyclops mixed together.
Oh, PSY. Okay. The N one
Near death
N D.
experience.
Yeah. Okay. So you say that, and I did an episode with a bunch of guys. You had Donut in there, Paranoid American, Slick Dissident, Homie Romy. We had a panel going on where we're talking about Dahmer, cannibalism, werewolf, lycanthropy, all that good stuff. It was like a 3-hour stream, and we were just going balls to the wall. It was crazy. It was wild. And Paranoid American is writing a book on adrenochrome. And he's gone pretty deep. He's got over 30-something thousand words on the subject, maybe more. And he's compiling it together. And he knows his stuff when it comes to he's a researcher. And I think it was NBC or some other big YouTube channel with like 1 million subscribers did an episode on adrenochrome, which is weird, right? Okay. One of these big media outlets talking about adrenochrome. Usually they don't talk about that type of stuff, but
yeah,
they put out an episode, and he hits me up and he sends me a clip. He's like, dude, and we had done our episode first. He's like, these people are kind of word for word literally going off of what I said on the episode that we did on the site. And I go, well, I mean, maybe they looked it up, but I didn't put adrenochrome in the episode notes anywhere unless YouTube already picks it up somewhere or another with like an AI and the words and stuff. Who knows? But I didn't put adrenochrome anywhere on the video. And he's like, hey, they kind of ripped off what I was saying, but I go, okay, maybe they found the same research that you came across or something. But it made me think of what you just said about them ripping ideas off of.
Dude, I'm for real getting pissed off because everything I write in this Stairway to Sirius thing, like I've been working on it for like 2 years now, and there's so many things in there that are becoming super relevant in the media. Like I was talking about this concept of like a mind virus that infects people and basically warps their perception in order to make them more open to paranormal phenomena. And the Department of Defense literally came out and said, oh yeah, there's a poltergeist pathogen that's coming out of Skinwalker Ranch just a few months ago. And I was like, bro, I wanted to break the story. But
I saw you post that, but I couldn't follow up with that, dude. I screenshotted it. Then when I went to go Google it, I couldn't find anything on that.
I think you just have to watch the New York Times like mini doc that they don't talk about it much. Like they say that sentence in the doc and then kind of leave it at that, which is kind of weird, but
interesting.
Then they go on to talk about dino beavers and all this other nonsense, but I swear to God.
So, because I was watching the Skinwalker the show the other day, like I was going through the main show, which we know we're not going to get anything from it, but I was watching it. Just sometimes I want something that I don't really have to think about, that I just have on in the background sometimes if I'm hanging out or if I'm reading a book or if I'm typing up research. You know, you just want something in the background.
Yeah.
And when I was watching that, my wife was watching it with me, and I had sent her that screenshot that you sent me, because in that show it's about, well, weird stuff happens, we don't know why, but then it would make sense, like some Lovecraftian parasite, the color out of space.
Yeah.
That comes in and affects people in some way. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And it also makes me think about the Homunculus movie on Netflix, where it's about homunculi are actually parasites that attach themselves to people.
I didn't even know this movie existed.
Dude, yeah, it exists. And it talks about the homunculus, but the homunculus takes on a more of a metaphysical aspect, parasitic, louche mining, Robert Monroe-esque type of thing, where how you're saying I 100% believe that these cinemagicians, they're talking about real things shrouded in stories to make it as a revelation of method, because I think that the truth is stranger than fiction when it comes to these sort of things. I 100% believe in that. So
yeah, and maybe when we spread theories, on podcasts and through books and stuff, and it hits a critical mass, they're like, okay, now we can just totally rip off what they said since people know it already and just put it out there and reveal it even further, I guess, to the masses. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I was just watching a podcast with some lady, I forget her name, but she claimed that she had written The Matrix. Have you ever heard of this person?
Yeah.
And yeah, so like, and I kind of believe her story, and I think it's happening. Like, I think it might have happened to just her at one point, and now it's happening to a lot of different people. I mean, it's a kind of a common claim, like among people who are supposedly mentally ill. They'll be like, "Oh, I wrote this story, and then the government stole it or whatever." But I don't think that those people all of them are crazy.
It plays into what you talk about, dude. Where if CERN created the internet, and the internet is at CERN, let's say the internet is this thing somewhere.
It's a hub.
It's a hub or something. And CERN created it, and we're typing in when we are, right? They call it portals on when you go into a website. You're entering a portal to enter this website. And then the www with the 666. And it's actually, it's faster to say World Wide Web than it is to say www.
Right.
And so this idea that, maybe perhaps they're tapping into that. And yesterday I learned, I don't know how accurate it is, but I trust Exertus. He said that with this camera right now and the sound, and I don't know what they're able to do, that they're able to map out your entire house if they wanted to.
Yeah. With all of the different electronics in your house, they can basically map out your house. You have smart TVs, smart computers, all this different stuff. They basically have a full visual of everything, and the more devices you have in your house, the more mapped out it is. I'm sure with like stuff with like Alexa, they can even echolocate stuff. Dude. I mean, they have one of those called Echo, right? Hey, Echo.
And it's a black cube.
Yeah. Well, wait, before we go too crazy, you should tell people the space whale story so they know what the hell I was saying.
So this, freaking, we're going on some other tangent. So the synchronicity was, and it was really weird. So I'm gonna have Nick on the comic book, and I don't know if it was off air or on air when you mentioned that you went to go see Bledsoe. And can you tell that story, because that relates to with the whale? And I don't know if you told it on air last time, or I think it was off air, or maybe after we got off the pod. I don't know if you're even allowed to say it on air.
No, I mean, I can tell the story, and I think I did tell you off air just because my mind was going. I was like, "Oh, dude, I got to tell you something crazy," and I think I even brought it up just because of the comic book conversation after.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yep.
So, basically, to make a long story short, when I went to go visit Bledsoe, he picked me up from the airport, and I'm like super tired and whatever, and we had just met, and he's like, "So what are you going to write about next?" And like, I was just kind of making a joke because I was not thinking about writing at all at that point. Like, I was kind of burnt out on conspiracy stuff for a minute. And I was like, I don't know, fucking space whales, like literally just a joke. And, we laugh about that. We go back to his house, and he's showing me all this, like, I guess like CIA memorabilia, like stuff that he had gotten from people in NASA and other intelligence stuff. And one thing that he showed me was a book called Reality Denied.
Give me 1 second,
John
bro.
D. Alexander. And apparently that book was gifted to him. And so he's holding it.
Nick, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hold on, bro.
What the hell?
My whole setup is bugging out right now. Hold on. What in the world?
That's interesting.
Hold on, dude. Hold on. I promise you I did not do this on purpose. My mic just gave out, dude. Like it's not even plugged in anymore. Hold on.
Did
You're not even coming in through like my headphones or nothing. This is ridiculous. I'm gonna hold on. Give me 1 second, bro.
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, but yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let me put you in through my headphones. This is crazy, bro. All right, go ahead and talk.
Yo.
So when you started going off on that, dude, it just completely disconnected my mic and my headphones.
For no apparent reason?
For no reason. I got off a podcast just a little bit ago with somebody else, and it worked just fine for almost 2 hours.
So, okay. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit like, I don't know. So anyways, where did I get cut off?
All right, so I heard you say that he started showing you, and then boom, it took you off of my setup, and my whole thing was bugging out.
Okay, so just to recap, where he picks me up from the airport, I make the joke about space whales. He takes me back to his apartment. He's showing me all this like memorabilia that he had been gifted from like the CIA, NASA, other intelligence people, whatever. And he shows me this book called Reality Denied by John B. Alexander, which had been given to him.
John D?
John B. Alexander.
Interesting.
He's the guy who led Project Stargate. And apparently he's a family friend or something like that. And so he gave them this book. And I'm like, Ryan, do you see what the fuck is on the cover of that book? And he's like, no, I never realized it. I was like, it's a space whale. There's literally a giant whale tail going into a galaxy or like a wormhole or something. You could probably look up the book cover right now if you want to, just to understand what I'm saying. So anyways,
what's the name of it?
Reality Denied. And so, yeah, isn't it? It's pretty cool looking. But anyways, maybe like a day or so later, we go visit his dad. And when we get to his dad's house, are we disconnected again?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear. Now I'm getting weird echoes, whatever. So when we get to his dad's house, his dad starts telling me about how he had a meeting with NASA, and he told NASA that he thought outer space was more like water and that there was different creatures swimming around up there, kind of like sea creatures. And me and Ryan just look at each other and we're like, dude, fucking space whales. So that was our whole space whale synchronicity thing. And I kind of had a few more that I documented and wrote down in this new book I'm working on, Stairway to Sirius. But yeah, I told you all that stuff. And I said, hey, when you put me in the comic, I want to be fighting a space whale. Or hunting one down, kind of like Moby Dick. And then you told me something very odd that I had no idea about.
So when we talked about the space whales, it made me think of, so this is Nick Hinton, Captain Hinton, or Captain Ahab 33, because I think Ahab is the captain on Moby Dick. And for some reason, the artist decided to go with that.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And so he did this because this space whale is the iteration of the vision that John D. and Edward Kelly experienced together when God revealed himself to them. And God didn't reveal himself as our Saturnian counterpart that we see, as Nick Hinton likes to say, the old man sitting on a throne in the clouds. Not that type of God, right? Father Time God. No, he was a whale covered in eyes that when he opened his mouth, or when it opened its mouth, it sounded like the roar of lions, many lions roaring. So when I told you that, this is all off air, by the way, we're just conversing after the show. And so you're like, wow, that's really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into the topic of, let's make some concept art. So here we are. And when I completely forgot. what I was gonna say, dude.
Maybe the name of the artist.
Yeah, so the whole thing was that John D and Edward Kelly were talking to the Angels, right? And cool, whatever, that's fine. I hit up Paranoid American. I tell him the concept that I wanted to go with. I said, hey, let's make some concept art for Nick. I didn't tell him what we had talked about or anything. And I shared with you the book where I got the information from John D.
Mm-hmm.
And the book was written by, let me try and find it here. Here, now I remember. The Angel is written by Merrick Cassaubon. Right, Cassaubon. And this guy wrote a bunch of stuff on John D, A True Faithful Relation. So Nick and I were talking about John D. I showed him the iteration of John D's God and Edward Kelly. And Paranoid American hits me back up. He's like, all right, I found an artist. I'm going to put you in contact with him. You have at it. I sent the guy payment. Didn't notice anything on his name. Didn't notice anything. But when I went to go send him the second payment, I think maybe sent him the first payment, one of the two payments. Anyways, I noticed that his last name was Cassaubon. Right? And it's right here. I'm not even bullshitting you guys. Look, Casa, not spelled exactly like the Cassaubon.
Angel Cassaubon, dude.
Dude, no, so that's the thing. So so it was Cassaubon, and this is the guy's name, but I didn't see the angel. I didn't see the angel at first. And I was like, oh, Cassaubon. And then I tell Paranormal, I was like, dude, this is crazy, bro. This guy has the same last name as the dude that Nick and I were talking about. And then that's when I noticed the first, after he had gotten done with the work, I was like, oh, the dude's name is Angel. And now it doesn't stop there. The dude loves to paint angels, okay? So we were literally, I feel like we literally made contact with an angel, quite literally and figuratively, because the dude loves to paint. I'm gonna pull up his Instagram. He loves to. His favorite thing to do is angels, like seraphim and all the crazy, weird looking angels with all the eyes and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's what he likes to draw. Like his preference of art.
Full disclosure, though, I do not think that the true one God is a space whale. I just don't know. And maybe we did not contact the good guy angels. I personally believe God, synchronicities are awesome and they're cool, they're interesting, but I don't think God whispers. If he wants you to know something, he'll let you know. I think that this is how these deceptive spirits kind of entice you into going deeper into certain things.
Yeah, by drawing you in with those synchronicities. So this is the dude's Instagram, Angel Cassaubon, and this is Sarah Feel. So he literally draws angels, which is his angels are trippy looking. I mean, he's a great artist. And
those are awesome. Yeah,
these are crazy looking. It reminds me of some Dark Soul-esque type thing. And he just recently he was the one that did the homunculus piece for me. Here's another angel. So his favorite thing to draw is angels, which is really weird because obviously the angel connection with John D and Edward Kelly. And he just did this piece for me, which I showed you already, but I'll bring it up here. For those that want to get a shirt with it, you can visit my TeePublic store. Remember to trust the seance and make a homunculus. Because, again, everybody wants... Dude, there's still people wearing masks today, bro.
Oh, yeah, I know. I see them.
So here they are. And so that was the synchronicity, bro, which was really weird. So we talked about Merrick Cassaubon. And then... we had a neutral party, which he doesn't believe in any of this stuff, which is Paranoid American. And when I told him, when I broke it down, because I was so freaked out, he's like, yeah, that's pretty weird. That's not, that's not coincidence. But dude, Cassaubon and then Angel. And then we were talking about John D and the angels and what they were making them do. I don't know, bro. Plus the whole whale stuff. Like, you didn't know I knew that?
Yeah, dude. I literally... And so that's an example of like writing things into reality. I guess there's a whole chapter about space whales in the Stairway to Sirius, and space being water, being an
Well, I
ocean.
told you that you could use the whale art if you wanted to, because it's really trippy looking.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna include that, and probably that story because it's the never-ending story. So I have to write it somewhere.
Yeah, we have to put it in the Akashic record somewhere. But yeah, so absolutely, this idea of, I believe that there are influences outside reality. If you look at the story of, so we're talking about fictional writing. If you look at the story of H.P. Lovecraft, I do believe that he would collect little trinkets, little oriental trinkets, and the jinn are known to attach themselves to, right, the genie in the bottle. That's a jinn. It comes out, grants you 3 wishes. In that story, is it like a Faustian pact? Do you know? Do you have to give something up for the genie in a bottle, or?
That's an interesting question. I've never even thought about that. I mean, but the whole idea of the 3 wishes is always kind of Faustian in a way, because your wish comes true, but never as you expected. It's like, oh, I want $1 million, and then someone has to die, and then you inherit the money, or like, it's always like there's some negative aspect to the wish being fulfilled.
It's the law of equivalent exchange, where it's like you have to give something. I don't know if you watch Fullmetal Alchemist, but it's one of my favorite animes, and it's when they put all the ingredients of a human being in the center of this transmutation circle, but they're missing that one thing, the soul, the essence, right? The fifth element that they're not able to figure out, because God is the one that gives you that. And that's why some alchemists of old would create homunculus and they would kill him as soon as they were born, because they're like, I don't know if God died for the sins of that homunculus. I don't know if God's gonna put a good soul or a demonic soul or what type of soul in that thing. So I'm gonna kill it before it could even manifest or something. And that's
Right.
that's what they believed. So I do think that they're, back to the H.P. Lovecraft, I think that he was in touch, or something was in touch with him that influenced him in his dreams in order to create and manifest this mythos of the Cthulhu mythos. So by them presenting themselves to him in his dreams, they help manifest themselves into existence by grimoires, right? The grammar, because that's the root word of grammar. And I like the way that Cheney from Project Cheney puts it. She says, well, books are the living word because they have spines, right? You bound it with flesh, with the leather. So we're books essentially, because we have a spine and we have flesh, and we speak the word. So books are so, and it's crazy. I was actually talking to my son's 4 years old, and he was like writing in his books. I'm like, don't write in your books, because that's literally the transference of knowledge. If there was nothing else, bro, if there was this cataclysm, which has happened, and there's no podcast, there's no other medium that people are going to be able to ingest what we were talking about here, well, maybe they might just find a scroll or a book or something of that nature, and that knowledge somehow, some part of that knowledge, maybe if it's not like the full comprehension of it, right? Because that's the whole thing with symbolism. You can interpret it any which way, especially if you're writing allegorically or symbolically or any which way. But at least they'll have some of that information to pass on to the next generation. So I think books are very important. I think libraries are very important. And I have a ton of physical books, but I also have a lot more PDF copies of books, which I don't like, dude, because the other day, for the first time, I was trusting a copy of a book that I had. I was doing research, and when I compared it to the physical book, well, guess which one was off?
Yeah, probably the PDF.
Yeah, by a lot.
I actually started printing those out just in case, something were to get wiped somehow. That doesn't necessarily protect you from the PDF being changed somehow, though, through technology or whatever. But you're talking about like beings making themselves known in dreams. Like that's essentially what that whole mind virus concept is about, is like something infects someone's mind who, someone is open to those types of things, maybe through channeling or, um, or just simply being receptive, thinking about these things, attracting them to you. And, yeah, it's like you said, they made themselves known to Lovecraft through dreams, and then he put them into the physical universe when he put pen to paper. And now these ideas are manifesting even more rapidly in the physical, when you consider people like Gordy Rose who say quantum computers are the great old ones personified. And, so it's like these ideas are needed to become basically like Lovecraft had to crawl so the AI scientists could run. Like they needed those metaphors in order to conceptualize something like a super intelligent AI, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, because and this is why, dude, this is why the ancients were so obsessed with the Platonic solids. And it all goes back to the soul ascent, the Merkaba, the what do they call it? They call it the Merkaba. They call it something else. There's another name for it. But I think it's all. I think it all goes back to the consciousness, dude. The transfer of consciousness and manifestation. So the Platonic solids or the Archimedean solids, whichever. The ancients, I think that's what it was the incorporeal. Mm-hmm. These things that existed in the ether, the fifth element, the world of forms. And when they captured that into their minds, they were able to transfer it, manifest it into a different medium. So these Platonic solids. And it's the physical representation of an idea. And there's this book here I've had him on the show, Sacred Codes, The Forgotten Principles of Painting by Lawrence Caruana. I had him on episode 11 or 9 of the 101 podcast. We're on episode, I have over 125 episodes now, but it's a thick boy. He sent me this book, and it's about, he's a visionary artist, but he talks about the soul ascent and the Platonic solids and Kepler, dude. Kepler, you see this picture here? Yep. With his picture of the Platonic solids. This is his idea of the celestial sphere. So they were measuring the distance between the planets. That's what they were all about. And Kepler's Mysterium Cosmographicum, and Saturn's orbital sphere is a 6-sided cube, of course. Jupiter's orbital sphere is a 4-sided tetrahedron. Mars' orbital sphere is a 12-sided dodecahedron. Earth's orbital sphere is a 20-sided ixosahedron, something like that. And so they were trying to measure the distances. Let me read it here. Was astronomer attempt to measure the distances between the planets with the Platonic solids. From the standpoint of modern astronomy, it is flawed, but in the visionary sphere, it suddenly makes sense as an ancient cosmology or model for navigating the planetary hierarchy. So what he's talking about here is using these Platonic solids, right, sacred geometry, for the transportation of your consciousness into these other spheres. So when you have sacred geometry such as Metatron's cube, a lot of people, Emily Moore has talked about how people with with sacred geometry tattoos are possessed, because these entities, these are portals for these entities to come in through. So in this concept, he's using it as a transportation for his consciousness. Well, I think that's what I was saying about the manifestation of ideas. You know what I'm getting at? It's a Merkaba. It's I've heard it put a certain way that I really liked it. Anyways, it's a car for the soul type of thing. Okay. It's like a vehicle for the soul. There we go. A vehicle for the soul, and that's what they were getting at, bro, when it came to all these things.
Talking about like the light vehicle or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that, like you're able to either envision it some which way, and again, I think that these are the sort of things, bro, that they use to be able to warp people's reality. So,
oh, for sure. I mean, I think that. So I have a kind of different take on the Platonic solids. Like I think when these people were these philosophers were opening their mind up to the spiritual realms and looking around in there and saw these perfect orderly shapes and then tried to recreate them in the physical universe. Like, I think this has something to do, like you said, with sacred geometry and architecture. You know, their temples were built based on these ideals. And the whole idea of like a sacred place is to transport someone's consciousness into a different state in order to come back with different revelations and different ideas. And therefore you put those other things into reality as well. But like, you know, creating a temple based on sacred geometry, or like even a temple inscribed with all these different symbols and stuff, you know, those were the original books. Like, and a book is essentially a computer, and so is a temple. It's like an alphanumeric labyrinth. You know, you have these structures that are built with, you know, all these different numbers encoded into them. It feels like whatever has been feeding us with these ethereal ideas has been seeding the idea of something technological for a very, very, very long time. That's where I'm coming from. And it all comes down to those perfectly ordered things that they want us to put into reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. And it makes me think of the Gnostics believe that every single celestial orbit was a different dimension. And I mentioned the Saturn's orbital sphere being a 6-sided cube. Maybe they understood that by meditating on this cube and entering the cube, they were able to transport themselves to this other realm. And I think that's the purpose that movies serve. They're cinemagicians. They're transporting your consciousness. You're in a trance-like state when you're watching these movies, bro.
Well, yeah, that's what the theater was originally for. It was to teach the masses the mysteries in a more efficient way. You know, that's what all the original dramas were. They were representations of the gods. And so that's exactly what movies are. It's just an advanced form of theater. And they're presenting the mysteries to us, and people will go online and start decoding everything that they watched in a movie. And I think that's all by design. I think there's a huge I seriously do. I think they're initiating the masses into the mysteries right now.
Makes me think of the Mithraic mysteries. There were 7 levels of ascension, and how you're saying you go underground into this theater of some sorts, right? Because that's why theaters are dark. The silver screen. I think it all goes back to alchemy, bro. And
it really does. Everything that's artificial kind of goes back to alchemy. Like, movies are not natural. You know, like these perfect temples are not natural. It all goes back to like playing God and creating a whole different reality, and these things that can alter your view of reality. But yeah, so like the fact that we might be being initiated globally through conspiracy culture and I guess just movies and stuff like that, I think it's kind of a double layered conspiracy. And I don't know if we talked about this really, but
we've talked about it off air. We've talked on the phone about it, and yeah, we can talk about it on here because there is how we've talked about these. And I don't want to be on board with the whole, because nowadays any truther that doesn't like something, automatically it's fake. Automatically it's CGI.
I'm not saying what's real and what's not. I'm just saying that there's something very suspect to me. So like this goes back into what you're saying about your friend's adrenochrome book turning into a documentary, right? Like back just a couple years ago, no one would ever think or believe that an adrenochrome documentary would be presented to the mainstream audience. But what I'm saying is that it's very suspect to me that it seems some conspiracies are becoming so blatantly obvious by design. I think at least 50% of people know that the COVID narrative was bullshit, that Biden is obviously not mentally all the way there.
He's a synthetic human made by alchemy, bro.
Okay. Well, I haven't gone that deep yet, but yeah, and then like, you know, they're talking about the World Economic Forum on Joe Rogan, they're talking about the Great Reset. Like these ideas it doesn't take a genius to understand them, and it doesn't take like a spiritually enlightened person to see how blatantly evil Klaus Schwab is. Like I think this is by design. They're kind of showing an evil side on purpose so eventually they can prop up heroes. I think it's a double layered thing. Like they play 12D chess, and they're always a couple steps ahead. So the fact that we've been allowed to find information on the Illuminati, adrenochrome, blah blah blah, I think they have kind of like planned for this and seen it coming. And I think eventually the Masons, who they actually have a concept called the pharmacos, which is a Masonic scapegoat, someone that they will kill and sacrifice. I think the Masons will be thrown under the bus eventually, or at least the satanic cabal, the deep state, whatever. Like they're setting up a scapegoat to take down in order to present a new regime, but they'll look like good guys. It'll be a false revolution essentially, because they're radicalizing all the conspiracy theorists right now. Like I said, I think it's like 50% of real people are fucking anti-globalists at this point. And if you watch any freaking cool movie right now, it's always about the bad globalists, and then there's like some conspiracy theorist hero being like, fuck this, we're not gonna stand for this.
Wasn't the newest, I haven't seen it, one of the newest Marvel movies, wasn't it like that there was a podcaster, or maybe Doctor Strange, one of these Marvel movies?
I think that's Godzilla.
Was it anyways,
Godzilla versus King Kong.
One of these movies had like a prominent podcaster that was imitating Alex Jones as like the one that was spreading the fake news and all this stuff in the movie. That was the whole thing. So yeah, I think there's a couple things going on here. I think that how you're saying they do plant these seeds and maybe sort of make us chase our own tails, because dude, one of the whole things about being in this realm is we have all this knowledge. It's kind of useless, right? We have all this occult knowledge, and what are we gonna do with it? What's the end game? Like I've asked a couple of people that, like, what's the end game? Is it, yeah, I'm cool with having interesting conversations. I love that. I love talking to interesting people. But what do you think the end game is? Do you think we're going to be able to actually use this, or are we helping people identify and break out of the matrix by talking about these things?
So it's funny, me and Maverick were just talking about this. He's like, dude, I just listened to this like really good conspiracy podcast. They were talking about some different model of reality, and I think it's true. And I'm like, okay, Maverick, what are the chances that like every conspiracy podcast you listen to, like, what if they were all correct? Like, and that's just obviously not the case. So it's like we're just fucking kind of wasting our time. I honestly think that a lot of the stuff that we're digesting and consuming right now is just entertainment for smart people. Like, they already knew that media was not going to be good enough for the people that think. So they're like, hey, we need to create kind of this like real life video game for them to distract themselves. So you go down all these different rabbit holes, and you end up wasting a lot of your time and driving yourself crazy and not even enjoying the present. Yeah,
you're right. And I kind of find myself like that in sometimes, and I need a break. I'm actually going to take next month off of the podcast, because hear me out, bro. Check this out. I'm in a rabbit hole now. So check this out. You see this picture here?
Yeah.
How weird does this guy look? Now check this out, dude. What if? All right, hear me out. I'm gonna be showing this picture like almost on every episode I've done.
Okay.
But hear me out. What if this is, dude? I don't know. You see the similarities? Who knows? What if it's homunculus all the way down? You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. For all we know, the powers that be could have been babies grown in vats. I don't know.
Well, so you mentioned that, and I don't know if you're up to date with the whole Tartaria conspiracy, but I was blown away the other day because apparently there was this mysterious European doctor that had babies in incubators at these world fairs, which is wild to think about because I never thought about it. But what if these cities were actually seeded with homunculus and they just grew the first cat? Well, first they just grew a cow in an artificial womb. I saw the article last night.
Didn't they grow like a lamb or a goat too?
I think so. Yeah, there was a couple of animals. So we're going to be eating cloned meat essentially. That's what it's about, the emulation of God, pretty much. I mean, that's what you're trying. That's what alchemy is at the end of the day. It's
playing God.
Exactly. Playing the divine alchemist, which is God. And
I mean, you know, that homunculus idea goes super far back. I don't know if it's the Bhagavad Gita or the Maha. I don't know how to say any of
It's in
these
all,
freaking books.
yeah. It's in all
But
ancient cultures, yeah.
yeah, there was this one ancient war where there was a king, and all of his soldiers were grown in jars. It said he had like 300 kids or something, and
What?
his like army was grown in some clay jars. So that sounds like to me like ancient clones. I think I talked about that in my second book. I don't know, but yeah, I think they've been doing this shit forever, and we're just coming around full circle, honestly.
Whoa, dude. Yeah, you're right. The epic Mahabharata states that 101 Kauravas were born out of the pieces of a single embryo. Does that mean all are clones of a single entity and carry the same genetic structure? Okay, yeah, I did not know this, but a lot of these ancient myths are about man being created from like a golem or a homunculus of some sorts. It's created in the Anunnaki story. They're created in the womb, a different matrix that is not of the humans, and they take the sperm and they insert it into that one. But yeah, I did not know about this one. So this is another connection, another connection to the rabbit hole, another piece to the puzzle of this conspiracy culture, that how you're saying it does suck people in. And there's something, I've talked about this before, where there's always topics, dude, that we're always gravitated towards, that they're like magnetized topics, like the occult. And how I relate it to literally everything. How you're saying I relate it to everything. I think about it all the time. Like, how can I connect the dots? And is it ramblings of a madman, or how you told your boy Maverick? Is there some validity to it? And we're all right, because we all create our own realities, and there is some truth to these mad ramblings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's not necessarily where I was taking it. I was just like, all of these, I guess in a way, you're correct, because the brain works in a way where whatever you look to prove, you will prove, whatever you seek, you shall find. So, it's the same thing with synchronicity. Like when you have an idea, you'll find all these different things that back up your perspective. I mean, it's just confirmation bias. So yeah, there's definitely truth in all these things. But what I was trying to say is like, so you're going to sift through thousands and thousands and thousands of podcasts and come up with one coherent worldview. It's just not going to happen. So like, you're just collecting all these different theories for what? It's not going to really help you live if you know what shape of a planet we're on. I mean, unless you're trying to prove Christian cosmology or something, I don't know. I don't even think the Bible even strictly states it's flat. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you can believe in God and have faith in God without knowing any of that. But yeah, so at a certain point, yeah, it just becomes obnoxious. I mean, you become a hoarder of knowledge. It's just as bad as hoarding other things. And, don't get so busy reading books you forget to write your own,
Yeah, I love that. Don't get so busy reading books that you forget to write your own. And I've been putting mine off for a while because I've been reading other books. So, I've always liked, since being in school, my whole thing has always been history and social studies and studying it. So I do enjoy this. I do enjoy doing deep dives and researching a certain topic. And
yeah, I mean, I definitely do too. I'm probably projecting a lot because it drove me crazy, but anyways.
Yeah, you were going hard in the paint though, dude. Like you were a lot of things that some of the things in your books that you wrote, even I was like, okay, this is why Nick Hinton is Nick Hinton, because that was mind blowing. You know what I'm saying? Like and you always think that as a researcher, I think that I go hard in the paint. No, there's always somebody else who goes harder in the paint than I could ever when it comes to this conspiracy stuff. I mean, there's stuff that I don't even know about. I don't pretend to know everything either. There are a lot of things I need to learn about. But the secret is talking about what you want to talk about, and covering topics that you want to talk about that are interesting to you. That way you're more motivated to want to look into them. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, I get the question all the time, where can I start to learn about everything that you know about? And there is no one size fits all solution. There is no one book has everything Because I can give you all the books on top of that, but you're not going to connect the dots. Right?
Right. And dude, there's infinite topics to study.
Yes.
Like, dude, I just now got around to the most basic stuff, like stuff that other people, like seasoned conspiracy theorists, like I've been into this stuff since I was like 15 or 16, but there's still stuff out there that seems like it should have been the day one stuff. Like I recently revisited Bermuda Triangle, which seems like, we were talking about that earlier, but I recently revisited it and I didn't even want to because I was like, this is like the first grade conspiracy, but like, so, there's a bunch of synchronicity surrounding it. So I was like, maybe I was being prodded to, and, I found out a whole lot of new stuff about it. But dude, even like just the godfathers or like the OGs of conspiracy theory, like no one talks about them. Like people like Fritz Springmeier or, I'm trying to think, I just wrote about these people, or like
James Shelby Downard.
Well, yeah, James Shelby Downard, he just popped up again recently, on a lot of podcasts, which was interesting. During Sirius season of all seasons. But yeah, there's just a lot of like OG conspiracy theorists that I hadn't even known about that I just started to look into, or like John Todd is another one. But the interesting thing about these people is if you look into their stories, like they turn out to be just very questionable. Like Fritz Springmeier, he is like the guy when it comes to Illuminati bloodlines and
hold on. So when you say that, I have to hit the
Illuminati confirmed.
There you go, bro.
Oh, thank you for that. I didn't even. Okay, so but yeah, like this dude, it's a whole other rabbit hole.
He's sus.
Yeah, so he was accused of like being a part of a conspiracy to bomb a bank and working with like white supremacists and just all this different stuff. And it just makes you question like, okay, well, was he really onto something and they just like, decided to destroy his character, or was he actually doing that stuff and this guy was just kind of crazy? Because, if you read letters from his wife, she says, oh, like he had all these different girls over that he was deprogramming from MK Ultra. And like literally this is the guy who popularized the idea of Project Monarch. If you look into the history of Project Monarch, it does not exist in official documents. So there's a lot, what I'm basically trying to get at is there's a lot of ideas that people are talking about where they don't even look at the source material, and it's just this mind virus thing. Like these ideas propagate and become memes and they become reality in a way. Like looking into Project Monarch can make you feel crazy. You can actually mind control yourself or brainwash yourself by reading too much into this dark stuff, which might not even be real to begin with.
I just did a deep dive on MK Ultra, and I think
MK Ultra is real, but Monarch is what I'm talking about.
So I think Monarch. I don't know if we brought up Monarch on it or not, but it was the evolution. It's one of like the offsprings of MK Ultra, because MK Ultra has like a bunch of sub projects. I could be wrong about that and talking out my ass, but you're absolutely right. And that's why it's a spiritual warfare. It always goes back to the metaphysical. And no matter how scholarly something is, a work is, it always goes back to some metaphysical aspect. And the one example that I always go to is The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon, where he was a crowd psychologist. And he studied how crowds operate, what makes a crowd, and how a crowd becomes its own living organism. And the crowd is only as smart as the dumbest person in it. But a crowd is always haunted by this thing that he called a contagion, a parasite of some sorts that weaves its way through the crowd, through the organism, and brings out this bestial nature in people, almost demonic. That's why you look at these riots and people are getting beat to death, or even places where people get trampled to death, which just happened recently, I think overseas in Vietnam or somewhere, overseas somewhere over there. I could be wrong about that. You can fact check that. But the point being that in crowds, people act differently in ways that they wouldn't otherwise act. And I think it's because of this metaphysical thing that weaves its way through the crowd and unlocks something biological in people that makes them braver, that makes them not think correctly, that makes them take irrational decisions. Is something metaphysical that even this guy who was a scholar and studied this for his whole life was like, I can't explain why it happens, but it just does. It's the spooky action at a distance type of thing, which I think that's magic. You know what I mean?
And that's the idea of the mind virus, is like, because the mind virus warps your perception through your beliefs, you could be writing a book that you wholeheartedly believe is the truth. You're not trying to deceive anybody, but because you have these ideas in you that are almost possessing you and forcing you to get this information out, you in a way become a chaos agent without even knowing it. And I think this has happened to, like, I'm not trying to discredit or say anything bad about anybody. I'm just saying that there's so much chaos out there. It kind of goes back to the like that metaphor of, like, you know, if you plant a seed in a shitty garden, it doesn't grow. Do you blame the seed or do you blame the garden? You blame the garden. So, like, if we are living in a chaotic environment filled with all these different half-truths and psyops and whatever, you can't blame the person who starts promoting these different ideas because they think they've stumbled onto something. But I think that's part of this conspiracy game that I was talking about earlier, is like, how can we distract the smart people? Just give them all these different theories and conspiracies, and people will just chase their own tail that way rather than...
Which a lot makes sense. A lot of them make sense, bro. A lot of them make a lot of sense. And that's the scary part about it, because is that either that parasite at work, or is that the reality manipulation happening in real time? You know what I'm getting at? Almost like we're connected by this web, and I'm thinking about it and I go, wow, this makes a lot of sense to me, bro. This is wild. Maybe the lizard people are real. Is that somebody else influencing that frequency that I just hopped on and manipulating my reality as giving it energy as well? And then vice versa, I start manipulating somebody else's reality by talking about it on this podcast. But that's why I always tell people, and what you mentioned about the whole source material, I always tell people to never take what I say 100%. Don't, and that's a problem that we have with, and it goes back to the crowd psychology, where certain people in power have a prestige to them. The way that they're able to portray their ideas, the way that they carry themselves, the way that they talk, the way that they look, that make people feel a certain way. Again, an alchemical chain transformation that's happening in that person in order to accept this new politician as the one that's going to turn everything around. Well, it's because they're giving off what LeBron called prestige. So don't get enamored by my prestige up here because I do all this research. No, do the digging yourself, unfortunately. But then even by me saying that, right now I'm thinking I'm feeling the egregore by telling people to look into it. But I always, dude, the beautiful thing about these books, at least a good book, right, is that there 9 times out of 10 there's gonna be a bibliography, right? There's gonna be a bibliography. There's gonna be a works cited page. There's gonna be all this stuff, and what you do is you go in here and you start looking up what the sources that this guy used and all this. It's like, so you want to learn more about the soul ascent and where he got his information from? Well, yeah, that's fine. Look up what source material he used and find that work yourself. And that's how I've acquired a lot of books, bro, by looking into source material of authors that I admire, that I go, wow, that's very mind-blowing information. Where did he get that from? And I'll go and I'll buy that book. And sometimes, dude, it ends, the road ends when it's a translation. When it's something that, okay, this is really mind-blowing, or where'd he get it from? Oh, Marsilio Ficino. Well, he wrote in Latin and all these other languages, so I have to rely on this person's translation. But even that, bro, could be compromised too, so I have to keep that in mind.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying any of these authors are being dubious on purpose. Like, I'm trying to say, and I'm kind of being a hypocrite. I mean, I don't cite my sources mostly because I'm lazy. I try and include as many book titles. Dude, it's just so much work, but I try and include as many authors and book titles as possible. But like, something that I wasn't doing, I was like citing like, oh, Robert Anton Wilson or this person or that. And like, you go to Robert Anton Wilson, who was he talking about? And then you go, like, even the philosophers, you have to go all the way back to the very, very origin. Like, where are these ideas coming from? Honestly, this is just going to sound to some people like I'm just being careless with what I say, but I think it all goes back to, like, when it comes to occult knowledge, I think it all stems back from, like, the religion of Egypt, like like Hermeticism, and then even further back would be Atlantis, because according to Plato, Egypt was a colony of Atlantis. But if you're to look at it through a biblical lens, Atlantis fell during a flood, supposedly. I think that Atlantis was the original Tower of Babel, where everyone spoke one language, and this one language was a language of symbols, was archetypes, egregores, whatever, this mind virus thing. And I think that it was wiped out for a time, and it's coming back through conspiracy culture in a way. Like, so, like, I'm not saying conspiracies are fake. I'm saying that some are very real, some are smokescreens, and other stuff is almost a clever form of entertainment meant to initiate you into that one world language of symbolism. Everyone that we talk to knows this symbolic language, and end rants right there, I guess.
And that's by design, bro, because it always comes full circle. Symbols are the language of the soul, and I think that's why they speak to us on a deeper level, and I think that's why we're so gravitated towards the occult, because they speak in symbols. They're all secret societies, so they talk to each other. And the Egyptians,
it's just, go ahead. Sorry, I was just gonna say, it's kind of funny they even call themselves secret societies in the first place, because they're definitely not a secret, and it's almost just a way to bring you in and be like, ooh, what is this mystery? Because humans are curious creatures. To
trigger that curiosity. And what's the saying? Curiosity killed the cat. Because, dude, I mean, I'll be honest with you, reading about all these magical things and homunculus and all that stuff, like, there's that little homunculus in the back of my head. It's like, well, I wonder what would happen if I tried this, or what, you know what I'm saying? And I know people who have joined secret societies because of that, because they were curious. They were like, oh, I wonder what this is about. Let me jump in, which I admire that, because I stop at the practical. That's where I stop. You know what I mean? I'm not here to contact any other entities, nor do I care for entities that contact me. That's where I draw the line. That's me personally. But some people know. Some people want, like a Parsons. He was a dude who was launching rockets into outer space. When he was practicing the occult, he doesn't want to chant for an hour or whatever. No, he wants to see results, bro. He wants to see manifestations. He wants to see things materialize in front of him, So, and that's where people get lost in the sauce. And I think they open themselves up to other things, because you can only take so much of that, right?
Right. And I think it's just like a hero's journey of the mind. It's like you descend into the underworld of the internet or books or whatever. You either lose your mind or become transformed, but either way, you end up right back where you started, which is just ignorance is bliss. Like, walking around all day thinking about reptilians controlling the government is not useful to my life. It might be true, but I just don't need to care about it right now. And but like, one thing I will say about like my whole rant about the source material thing is, like, this is something I talk about a lot in the New World Disorder, is like, I found out, I can't like bring up any particular instances right this moment, just because my mind's a mess right now. I'm talking about all these different things, but I do have it written down. Is like, when you go back and find all these different conspiracy books that popularized a lot of these ideas about the Illuminati and Bohemian Grove and stuff like that, I'm not saying they're not real, but they go back to very questionable people, some seemingly connected to intelligence agencies and things like that, people in, U.S. Navy and stuff like that. Very questionable publishing companies in general, using occult symbolism. It's like, why are these people who seem to be connected putting out this type of information? It's almost as if they want people to know. So it's like a form of chaos magic, honestly. It's like the book is the sigil. We are kind of creating the reality, the paranoid reality they want us to live in. I mean, it actually serves the government for us to walk around believing that everyone's an NPC and everyone's out to get me, because you're more easily controllable when you're in a state of fight or flight.
That's science. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what the books say, written by the guys that made the codes and all that. And that's why I brought up the whole thing with some conspiracy theorists. As soon as you mention something, oh, it's fake, it's CGI. Well,
Yeah, I don't know what's fake and real and what's CGI. I'm just saying a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, and it's meant to be confusing. It's nonlinear warfare. It's informational warfare.
It's psychological warfare. Yeah,
exactly. And when people are bombarded with so much contradictory information at once, even if some is the truth and some is lies, you have this thing called future shock or informational overload, where you are more susceptible and suggestible to different ideas and just being controlled. Because if someone offers you a solution in this crazed state of mind, you're more likely to take it. And Michael Aquino, who wrote Mind War, talked all about this, and he talked about using the truth as a weapon through radio shows, through comic books, through conspiracy books, blah blah, in order to socially engineer and orchestrate a fake revolution in America. And he goes into all this detail about how we're going to use UFO cults, how we're going to use all this different stuff that we've been talking about.
Interesting. So use the same thing that people are enamored with against them, right? You weaponize it.
He literally says we'll weaponize the truth. He said the ultimate weapon is the truth. It's Excalibur, and we will weaponize the truth. And yeah, that's what the truth has been doing. It's been radicalizing people. We're more divided than ever, and it's because the conspiracy theorists are seemingly so right, and the others, or the normies or whatever, are seemingly so batshit and wrong. And I am there with the majority of people thinking that, or majority of listeners, I guess. I'm just saying it hasn't done us any good, though, to become so disconnected from our fellow, citizens.
What do you think is, as we approach the end here, Nick, what do you think is something that we could do to aid in the combating of this and to not getting sucked up? What would you recommend people? What have you done in your journey? Because I know you've disconnected a few times from all this chaos, but what would you leave the listeners with so we can end on a relatively good note? Because this got heavy, bro. This is heavy stuff that we're talking about, and I'm sure it's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about, right? Because it's the elephant in the room. Hey, it might all be bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might all not matter at the end of the day, but to some people, dude, it's everything.
I mean, yeah, it kind of is my everything as well. So I'm not saying to stop researching or stop pursuing your passions or anything like that. I'm just saying try. Like I said, I might be projecting a lot. I just see the danger in becoming so absorbed in this stuff and trying to quote unquote figure out the truth. You're right, though,
because I've experienced it.
Yeah, it can almost, like, when synchronicities bombard you constantly, it can almost be like psychosis.
I look at the watch every day at 3:33 or at 11:11 or at 1:11 or something like that, and I always look, and and again, it might be me programming my body to every time look at my watch at the same time, or is it angel numbers and they're trying to talk to me? You know what I'm saying? It gets real easy to get lost in the sauce when it comes to that. So I can relate exactly to what you're saying. I don't think you're projecting, bro. I don't think you are. But I know you, so I know what you've been through in your journey, because I've talked to you off air before, and which is a little bit more candid. So maybe you feel like you're projecting because we've talked before. But I know what you're saying to be true because I've experienced it myself.
So I think that what's going to happen is kind of inevitable and unavoidable, but that's not such a bad thing. But what I think we're going to watch happen is, so it's going to be due to this, in my opinion, purposely orchestrated introduction to the occult. And because of these ideas and the introduction of conspiracy culture, which in my opinion is just another layer of the social engineering, it's been on purpose. They've been leaking information on purpose. There's this idea that the CIA has called limited hangouts. You can look that up. It's about giving certain portions of the population bits of information. And kind of like, they're basically creating like online echo chambers and manipulating people's behaviors whenever they insert like a conspiracy theory onto Twitter. They're like, hey, everyone freak out about this. They're literally controlling the way we react, or at least studying our reactions to further figure out how to do things to us. But anyways, the reason I think they introduced us to the occult through conspiracies, people saw the conspiracies, they thought they figured out the truth through the occult, is we're going to watch this false spiritual revival or spiritual awakening, kind of like QAnon's Great Awakening. I think that people are going to start rising up even more and revolting against the quote unquote New World Order and the Great Reset and the WEF. And there is going to be some sort of false savior situation where the white hats come in. And I'm not talking like QAnon. I'm saying it'll be something totally different. Maybe it'll be something like Bluebeam that comes and saves the day, from these in short, the Masons, they play both sides, right? That's the white and black checkerboard. Even Crowley talked about the white magicians versus the black magicians, the White Lodge and the Black Lodge. And ultimately they're fighting for control over the earth. And I think that the dark, deep state, satanic cabal, whatever, is the black checkerboard piece. And these love and light, new age of Aquarius, golden age stuff are the Luciferian false light. And we're going to watch some sort of battle happen where the conspiracy theorists and the new agers seemingly win. But this is part of the ploy to get us to accept what's coming. Because Crowley and Alice Bailey, they wanted an enlightened utopia. Well, who else would you want in your enlightened utopia but people who have already been initiated into the occult?
What do you know what the name of that utopia is?
I have no idea. I just know that Crowley was talking to the secret chiefs or something like that, and they were like ascended masters, these enlightened beings, and they were going to rule from the top down in like a pyramid structure. And yeah.
Wow,
why do you
dude.
know?
No, because there is it seems that in all these grimoires and different texts, there's always a utopia. There's like a hermetic utopia. There's, Plato's utopia. There's
one thing I want to end with, though. I think that this utopia will be offered to us as something similar to the return of Tartaria, where it's like, oh, Tesla tech and free energy and blah, 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 blah.
It's funny you mentioned that because on Joe Rogan, they just got done talking about that, about the free energy. You got Randall Carlson talking about how there was this company in the Maldives that was able to harness free energy, and he was going to come out and do a big reveal of some crazy information. So the timing is weird, bro. I don't know if you watched that episode or not.
I did not. But yeah, to me, it's weird in general that Tartaria popped up out of nowhere in the last couple of years. And everyone seems, it's a psyop, and same with Tesla tech. I'm not saying it's not real. I think it is. I think it is real, but I think it's another layer of the op where there's supposed to be this side of geniuses that seem like the good guys. And I don't know. Have you ever watched Disney's Tomorrowland?
No, but I've been on the ride in Disney. Did they steal my soul, bro?
No. I think you're fine. But Tomorrowland is essentially about a secret society of people, including Tesla, Thomas Edison. I forget who's all in it, but Tesla is like the one that I'm focused on in the book. And they create a futuristic utopia in a different dimension. And guess where they reveal it? The New York World's Fair.
Of course.
I think something similar will happen. I think that's why they're telling us about free energy, why they're telling us about Tartaria, why they're telling us that, UFOs are actually from another dimension and we're getting super advanced technology from them. All this stuff is, if it's in the mainstream or hundreds of millions of people are listening to it, it's not a secret. Like, you're not ahead of the game. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just like, I think this is all by design. Like,
it's, and I've been looking into the origins of
real quick. I just want to say, when a conspiracy theorist really makes a difference, they don't remain a conspiracy theorist for very long. That's all I'll say. And I'm not making any like predictions about myself. Like, I want to get out of this game. I'm just saying that the people who like got too close to the truth, they weren't allowed to make millions of dollars off of theories. You know what I mean? So
no, I got what you're saying. I mean, look at, well, I would say David Icke, but he's kind of sort of famous, isn't he?
Yeah, dude. And so that's another thing about the source material stuff. I look deeper and deeper into Icke, and he was talking to like some random psychic who was channeling and all this weird stuff before he had his quote unquote awakening. And in my opinion, these Gaia dudes might be the precursors to the false light, good guys versus bad guys scenario.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. Like ascended. They'll come out and say, I'm an ascended master, right? Which, I mean, I try to do that, right? You try to say I am the son of God or something, and people took it the wrong way. And I think maybe that's why he switched up his game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's all fine and dandy to say. He might have said that in a metaphorical way.
Yeah,
I don't think he's like an evil guy. I think he's just doing what his role is, and he might not even know what that role is.
Yeah.
That's the way this mind virus thing works. Is it just takes over your perception? You think you're onto something because you follow the syncs, or you follow the synchronicities, and yeah, I don't know how to explain it any further than that.
No, I'm with you, bro. I'm 100% with you, and I've talked about reality manipulation with buildings, Pythagorean palaces, where they follow this math, the universal language, symbols, sigils, and they're able to encapsulate higher levels of dimensions in these cities, in these buildings. And that's, again, only the initiated, how you're saying this global initiation, those are the people who are going to be able to understand it. Not everybody's going to be able to understand it or see the occulted scaffolding in these buildings, which is also part of the architect as magician with his stylus or wand as he's creating these worlds, or even like a writer with his little, the pencil is like a wand, and if you're writing in blood or writing in something else, whatever it is, some alchemical ink that you made with your own sperm or something, right? Something crazy, and you're writing the Constitution of the United States of America or something of that nature. You know what I'm getting at? So I think it all goes back to alchemy, and these sorcerers of the subconscious is what I've been calling them, because they're talking to us on a deeper level. They're not coming out and talking us how me and you are talking. It's a different type of language, and some people.
The alchemists literally want to transmutate the entire world.
Yes.
That was their goal, was
yes.
to transform the entire world. And in order to do that, you have to synthesize the two polarities. And that is what they're doing right now. That's a
transhumanist agenda.
Well, even the transhumanist thing, I think, is partially an op. Like, I do think we're going to see one faction of humanity become more and more machine-like, and another faction of humanity become more and more, oh, we worship Gaia, we worship nature, we're all organic and blah blah blah. And this is the alchemical process that they're doing to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And do you know when the book will be out? I know I pre-ordered mine. Where can people hit you up to pre-order it? You need a website, bro. You need somewhere. Set up a Ko-Fi, dude. Ko-Fi is easy to set up. Set it up. People can send you money directly there, and it'll be a little bit more organized.
Yeah,
we could talk about that off air, but
Let's do
when can people expect the book to be out? At least the first one before the second one, because I'm excited to dig into both of those.
Yeah, and I explained these ideas a whole lot better in the New World Disorder and the one that will be coming after that. But yeah, if you want the book, just hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, NickHinton, and send me a DM. Maybe I'll have a website, though. I don't know. I'm going to talk to Juan after this. When is this podcast going to be out? Because I'm trying to get the final edits done on this, like, before this Thanksgiving break is over. Like, I'm just going to be working on it all weekend.
We'll talk about it off air. So people can hit you up on there, find the book. Make sure to follow me on social media at the One Podcast. The101podcast.com. Make sure to check out the Chosen Juan versus the Saturnian Cube by Paranoid American Comics. And you can get your copy. I have a Ko-Fi store as well. You can check out his website. He's got a bunch of other good stuff out there. He's got the MK Ultra pamphlet. It's the history of the MK Ultra. And make sure, guys, to sign up for the Kickstarter for issue number 2 with Sam Tripoli, Alex Stein, other people in there, where we go and visit the Podfather. So make sure to check that out. It is on my Instagram, and I'll post the link in the description, and I'll catch you guys on the other side.